What does it feel like to be a shadow in your own home, watching love pour out to everyone but you? For as long as I can remember, I was the afterthought in my parents' house, a faint outline drowned out by the vibrant colors of their foster children. My name is Clara, and this is the story of how I learned that love, when misplaced, can build walls taller than any home and how those walls eventually crumble. I was 7 when my parents, Ellen and David, decided to open our home to foster children. They were kind-hearted, or so everyone said, driven by a mission to give lost kids a chance at a better life. Our small, creaky house in suburban Ohio became a revolving door of new faces, kids with haunted eyes, tattered bags, and stories I'd overhear in whispers late at night. At first, I was excited, imagining siblings to play with, allies in my little world. But excitement faded fast when I realized I was no longer the center of my parents' universe. I was their biological daughter, their only child by blood, yet I became invisible. My parents threw themselves into their new roles. Mom would spend hours helping a foster kid with homework, her laughter echoing through the house as she praised their progress. Dad would take them to baseball games or fix their bikes, his face glowing with pride I hadn't seen since I was 4, and he taught me to ride my own. I'd sit at the dinner table, pushing peas around my plate, while they listened raptly to stories from kids who'd only been with us a week. My own stories about school, my drawings, the time I won the spelling bee were met with distracted nods or a quick, "That's nice, Clara." I learned early to stop trying. By the time I was 12, we'd had over 20 foster kids come and go. Some stayed months, others years, but each one got the best of my parents' attention. There was Mia, who got Mom's handmade quilts, the ones I'd begged for. There was Tyler, who Dad called Champ and took fishing, while I stayed home because someone has to help with chores. I didn't hate them, they were kids, like me, caught in their own storms. But I hated how my parents' love seemed to have a quota, and I was always left with the scraps. One night, I overheard Mom talking to a social worker on the phone. "Clara's fine," she said, her voice casual. "She's independent, doesn't need much." I stood frozen outside the kitchen, my heart sinking. Independent? I was a kid, desperate for their warmth, but they'd already decided I could manage alone. That was the night I stopped calling them Mom and Dad in my head. They became Ellen and David, strangers who shared my last name. Then came the twist I didn't see coming. When I was 15, a new foster kid arrived, Lila, a quiet girl with sharp green eyes and a habit of sketching in a tattered notebook. Unlike the others, she didn't soak up Ellen and David's attention. Instead, she noticed me. One afternoon, as I sat alone in the backyard, sketching the oak tree I'd climbed as a kid, she plopped down beside me. "You're good," she said, peering at my drawing. "Better than me, and I've been at it forever." Her words were a spark in the dark. For the first time, someone saw Menet as the good kid who didn't need help, but as Clara, with dreams and talents of my own. Lila and I became inseparable. We'd draw together, talk about books, and share secrets under the glow of fairy lights in my room. She told me about her life before foster care, parents who fought, a home that felt like a battlefield. I told her how I felt like a ghost in my own house. "They don't see you," she said one night, her voice fierce. "But I do. And you're worth seeing." Lila gave me something my parents never did, a mirror to see my own worth. But she wasn't with us long. After 6 months, she was placed with a permanent family. The day she left, I cried harder than I ever had, not just for her, but for the part of me she'd awakened, the part once swore I'd never let fade again. High school passed in a blur. I threw myself into art, winning scholarships and local contests, but Ellen and David barely noticed. They were too busy with the next wave of foster kids. By the time I graduated, I'd saved enough from part-time jobs to move out. I left for college in Chicago, promising myself I'd never look back. I didn't. Not for years. I built a life I was proud of. I became an illustrator, my work featured in magazines and galleries. I had friends, a small apartment filled with plants, and a sense of peace I'd fought hard for. But the past has a way of knocking. One day, when I was 25, I got a call from Ellen. Her voice was frail, not the confident tone I remembered. "Clara, we need you," she said. David had suffered a stroke, and their savings were gone, drained by medical bills and years of supporting foster kids with no financial return. They were losing the house. I went back, not out of love, but curiosity. What did they expect from the daughter they'd overlooked? The house was a shadow of itself, peeling paint, cluttered with relics of kids long gone. David sat in a wheelchair, his eyes distant. Ellen looked older than her years, her hands trembling as she poured tea. "We thought you'd want to help," she said, almost pleading. "You're our daughter." I felt a storm inside meander, hurt, and something softer, like pity. I thought of Lila, who'd taught me I deserved better. I thought of the years I'd spent proving it to myself. "You chose who your family was," I said, my voice steady. "It wasn't me. I left them with a list of social services, the same kind they'd once navigated for others. I didn't give them money. I didn't give them my heart." Karma, it seemed, had arrived empty-handed. But the story doesn't end there. A year later, I got a letter from Lila. She'd tracked me down through one of my gallery shows. She was thriving, studying art therapy, helping kids like us process their pain through creativity. She wrote, "You showed me I could be more than my past. I hope you know you're more than yours." Enclosed was a sketch, a portrait of me, smiling, under that old oak tree. I framed it, a reminder that love, when true, leaves a mark no neglect can erase. Looking back, I don't hate Ellen and David. They gave what they could, but their hearts were stretched too thin, their priorities skewed. I've learned that family isn't just blood, it's the people who see you, who choose you. Lila was my family. My friends are my family. And I've become my own family, too, building a life where I'm no longer a shadow. Sometimes, I wonder if my parents regret their choices. I hope they do, not out of spite, but because regret means growth, and growth means hope. But that's their story now, not mine. I've written my own, with colors brighter than I ever dreamed, and I'm not looking back.